Welcome to Tug Social Media Tips and Tricks. Today we will be looking at the Excel subtotal function. This function is one everybody should have in their Excel toolbox. It makes subtotaling and working with large spreadsheets with multiple sections very easy to get your numbers. Most people, when they have a spreadsheet with multiple sections and they have subtotals and subtotals of subtotal sections and a grand total, would use the sum feature, as I have in cell C27 here. It's just a sum of the cells above it. But double click it, you see the formula and what it's summing, and it works fine. It adds the right number. The problem you have with this is you come down and you say you want to do a subtotal of two sections. You can't use the sum function. You have to do something, plus two separate areas where you've already summed. And if you have a spreadsheet like a lot of people in construction do, that's a schedule values, it could be 12, 1500 lines or rows of Excel data. So when you get down to your grand total, you're doing the old plus this cell, plus this cell, plus this cell, and you miss one or it's the wrong cell and your numbers are off and you'll be looking for a long time. Well, the subtotal function is the way to work around that. And what the subtotal function does is it will subtotal an area like the sum here function, but as you use subtotals in other sections to subtotal areas with other previously used subtotal functions, it will ignore them. So we'll look at that and show you how to use that. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to subtotal uh, D27 to get all the previous application numbers. And I'm going to use the function, insert function wizard, which is just above column B here. Opens up a search box, or if it's a recent, it will be in this list here. So I'm going to click on subtotal, and it brings me up my arguments section. One thing you need to know about subtotals, it will subtotal different other functions. And there's a list you can get in Excel help, but we're going to be looking at the sum, which is number 9, and it has two choices, 9 or 109. If you use 9, when it subtotals, it will include any hidden values. So if you hit a row or two, the subtotal will include that. If you use 109, if you hide something, it will ignore it. For this example, we're going to use 9. And then the second argument is the range you want a subtotal. So in this case, I'm just going to highlight D12 through D26 and click OK. And I have my subtotal. And like other functions and formulas, it can be copied to the right. I'm using my Control R key to fill right. Or you can copy and paste it to another section. In this case, it's the same layout, so it pre-filled all the information. But if you had a different size, you could just drag up and down to get more or less cells. Now, where it really comes in, as you can see, I have subtotals for these two groupings, but I want a subtotal of these two groups to give me a combined general conditions and fees. In this case, I could paste in the subtotal and expand it, or I could type it in. In this case, I will type it in, subtotal. And you see it starts coming up a little list here, and I can just double click subtotal, double click sum, and comma, and then I will highlight both sections, including the subtotals. So I'll come down and highlight down to D45, hit enter, and I get the correct total where it is ignoring D27 and D44 to give me the correct subtotal. And again, these both can be copied right to fill in the rest of this section. Now, what really comes in, well, is when you get down to a bottom of a large spreadsheet, and you can use the same thing. In this case, I'm going to, again, type my formula in, subtotal, and I want 9. But what's good is like a lot of other functions, you can use a name range. And I know I set a name range up for the previous amount column called pre-amount. And when you type it in, this little autofill box shows that I have a name range. And I can just double click it, and I get my subtotal of this complete range, which is from, if I highlight it, it goes all the way up to the top. So it's highlighting almost everything in this column. It is subtotaling everything in this column, but ignoring all the yellow subtotals. So I get a correct answer. And again, it can be copied right. Subtotal, use it. It will save you a lot of aggravation and time when you're analyzing spreadsheets with errors. It's a great function to keep in your Excel toolbox. Follow us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and check out tugweb.org for the latest from the organization. Thank you.